of different culture between Muslim refugee and the French value. Because of what? Because in France, French people, of course, they always protest, they always value the freedom of speech, freedom of expression. Everybody can say about anything. Everybody can make joke about God or even monarchy or anything. But at the same time, Muslim people or Muslim refugee do not think the same thing. They worship their God, and making joke about God or anyone related to religion is something that they cannot accept that. So this is some kind of like clash of the culture and the difference between them. And the next example is also, this is something with waiting room, Jane L.
Yeah, don't worry.
Okay. Oh, and sometimes like the hosting state can perceive that refugee can take over their culture. The obvious example can be in Korea. One day, I think in somewhere around 2018 or 2019, there was arrival of Yemeni refugee on Jeju Island in Korea. And there were like 500 Yemeni arrive in Korea. And I have to, if I can give you a little bit background. So Yemeni are Muslim people where where Korean people has different religion, different belief. So when the Yemeni refugee arrive in Korea, there are a lot of backlash of people who come and protest the Yemeni refugee. So as you can see from the photo, they said that fake refugee, go home right now. That's also because Korean people are afraid that if they let Yemeni refugee to be in Korea, in the next 5 years, maybe Korea will be full of mosque and will be full of they're afraid that Yemeni refugee will spread the how we can say that, Islam. So people are afraid that like the refugee will spread like the being like Islam idea and everything. So that's why they feel afraid that the refugee will take over of their culture, will take over of their value, what they believe. That's why sometimes it's rise to xenophobia and racism to against the refugee. So as I say, like the first point, refugee can be a threat to financial security. They can be a threat to cultural and society security. And that lead to the last point, they can be a threat to national security. So most of the time, like states are often linked migration to the event of terrorism, which I have to really highlight in this point. Refugee doesn't mean that they are terrorists. That doesn't mean that all refugees like are terrorists, but the terrorists can use this channel as a refugee to attack the country or something like that. And that's why sometimes like country try to limit the number of people to arrive the country as a refugee, because it's, as we can see from the example that I put here, the event of Charlie Hebdo shooting in 2015, I believe that everyone quite familiar with this event, right? And also it starts from 2015, and after that, there are so many events and report about racism and xenophobia increase in France, and also the latest one that the French teacher who showed the cartoon, the comic of the Prophet Muhammad during the class, and later he got like stabbed to death. So this kind of like thing that keep going on, and it's generate a picture, it generate a perception that, oh, like refugee, and sometimes they think like Islam refugee are the threat to our national security. They are linked to Islamic terrorists, but it's not always like that. But states usually tend to perceive refugee are the one who linked to the terrorism. So next, I would like to introduce you about the policy. So if states think that refugees are threats to our country, so what are they trying to do? So they're trying to do many policy that they can prevent the refugee to arrive their territory. So the first method would be maritime interception. Second would be punishment on the airline. And third one is many other measures, which we will examine one by one. So first is maritime interception. So this one is common to see some states use this method to intercept the boat of the migrant. And in this example, I took the example from Australia, which they are very like, is quite well known that Australian government has been using this kind of method. So what they do is when the migrant like take the boat and they try to arrive the territory. So in this case, the Australian government, they will send the Navy, as you can see from the photo, this is the Navy, and they try to push the boat and turn it back to where they come from, like when the boat arrives, so the Navy will not let them pass. The only thing that they can do is to turn that boat back and go back to where they come from, so that they will not arrive the territory. Why they cannot arrive the territory? Because if the refugee, if this group of people arrive the territory, if one of their legs step on the land of Australian territory, the Australian government has a duty, international duty or international obligation to give them the status, at least to give the protection to them. They cannot say that, oh, we will deport you. No, they have like immediate obligation to receive them. That's why they it's kind of like tricky way that, okay, like if you come, we will not let you arrive our territory. We will send a Navy to push you back. And this also happened in the UK as well, and also in the Mediterranean Sea, where a lot of like the North African refugee try to reach Italy. So they are using the same method. It's called maritime interception. So the second method is the carrier liability legislation. So have you ever been like wondering, like when you go to the airport and you try to check in at the counter, and they will ask you a lot of questions like, oh, like where are you going? Do you have visa? What is your flight back to Mexico, or what if you fly back to Thailand? They ask you a lot of questions. And I was like, when I didn't understand, I was like, why they need to ask a lot of questions? They are just staff working for the airline. They are not immigration officer, right? Those who have like authority to ask this kind of question should be like, it should be like immigrant officer. Like in let's say if you want to go to the UK, this kind of thing should be the job of immigrant officer from the UK. Why they ask you like since from Mexico? This is because if the airline let you go without looking at your visa, without looking at anything, they will have to pay the fine. They will have to pay the money to the state that they allow these people without the valid visa to the country. So this kind of like the indirect method, in the indirect measure, try to protect people to arrive their territory without a visa. So other securitized measure, there are a lot of securitized measure that the state trying to adopt. First one can be the high-end burden of proof. So it means that when refugee arrive in that country, let's say refugee arrive in the UK, so he need to prove that he's a refugee. Like he need to show the document that, oh, I'm being persecuted because I'm gay, I'm being persecuted because I criticize my government. So they need a lot of proof to prove that they are refugee. And second one is also introducing visa restriction and also strengthen immigration control and to foreign country. And also like the last one is to avoid international legal obligation under the 1951 Refugee Convention. So I talk a lot about how refugee can be a threat or how state perceive refugee as a threat. So I don't want to give you like all negative perspective about refugee. So we are going to shift a little bit, shift the mood that how refugee can be perceived as the assets on the receiving state. So the first one is the most of the time refugee, also including migrant, they can improve a lot of economic development of the host country. Of course, and the example that I took is the, again, Nicaraguan migrant who work in Costa Rica. As you can see from the photo, they are Nicaraguan migrant working in the banana plantation. Usually they work for coffee plantation and banana plantation. So these people, they are kind of like a backbone of economy in Costa Rica, and also they work. And because of that contribution, that's why they can improve the GDP, they can help Costa Rica to export this product to other country and improve the economy of the country. And second, also, they can be assessed on receiving state in the sense of they can add significantly to cultural, social dimension of to the host society through their food, their music, their religion, value, theme, and media. Sometimes like some of you might like Asian food, or some of you might like Arab food or something like that. Have you ever wondered that the restaurant that you go and like have buy some food, maybe they are refugee from around the world, maybe they're not just only migrant, they're just someone who try to escape the violence or the conflict or the war from their country, and they open restaurant in abroad. So this is an example of the Vietnamese Vietnamese chef who fled to Finland as a refugee, and she brought her cooking skill with her, and she shared her recipe and open Asian restaurant to allow everyone who can try the food. So of course, like her presence can contribute a lot to the dynamic, to the creative, economically, and also culturally to the whole society. And next, the assets on receiving state also can not only they bring the diversity in terms of food or music, but also they can bring the skills and also technical knowledge which can benefit to the receiving state. So have you ever known that Albert Einstein was once a refugee as well? So he was a refugee who fled the persecution from Nazi Germany to the US. And another one is Freddie Mercury. He also the singer of the rock band, the band Queen. So his I just found that his history also really interesting. So he fled the violence in Tanzania because in Tanzania he kind of like a minority in that country. So he might face a lot of like discrimination, racism, or even some threat to his life. So that's why he fled from Tanzania to England, and he become like very like famous singer in the world, and he's become like a symbol of England as well. Like, and who knows, like once he was a refugee, right? So yeah, and this is almost the end of the presentation. So the core idea of this debate, I mean, if we keep talking about refugee asset or threat, we will never reach the conclusion because it's very like debatable topic. The core idea is like the migration and refugee will never stop. It will keep going on, whether we like it or not, it will keep going. The point, how can we shift from the language that we think that they are threat or assets? Can we shift that to responsibility or opportunity? Can state think that this is a sharing responsibility instead of thinking that they are a burden? So in this case, I would like you to think about, and I would like to hear, of course, about the refugee in Mexico. How can Mexico move step further and treat refugee as responsibility and probably assets? So I would like to, I think Mexico is really interesting in the sense of migration, because Mexico is not only receiving state, received from like Central America or Caribbean or Africa, but Mexico also sending state. There are a lot of Mexicans who migrate to work in the US, right? Or some of them also refugee and they migrate to the US. At the same time, Mexico also transit state from, let's say, caravan, Central American caravan migrant. They try to transit in Mexico and move further to the US. So Mexico is really interesting in terms of like location because they are it is sending state, receiving state, and transit state as well. And one point that I noticed, I think one thing that's different is you can see that when I explain about the example in France, that there is a clash of different culture or language or religion between Muslim refugee and French people, right? But what is interesting is in Mexico, if the a lot, I believe that a lot of refugee or migrant, they are from Central America as well. So they don't really have like clash that much, you know, because like you all speak Spanish and you all like almost like having the same religion, like Catholic. And so at least like language and religion are not going to be a clash. So that's why I think in case of Mexico is really interesting. So I would love to hear more from all of you that what do you think about refugee in Mexico? And next I would give the floor back to Daniel.